Hi everybody, Greg Heilman with the Sound on Stage. Welcome again to another episode of Get to Know a Theater. Today I'm in downtown Seattle with David Hsieh, Artistic Director of ReAct Theater. And we're here to talk about their wonderful new space that they have, a little bit of a history of the organization, and kind of the things we always go through with artistic directors, which David is here. So I guess first of all, David, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time.
My pleasure.
Our paths have crossed any number of times over the last couple of years since I've been doing this, and I know that you are not just a theater maker, but you're a theater connoisseur, so you tend to go to almost as many shows as I do. And so you post as many as you can get to, but you're also making theater, so I'm not committed to that piece of it. So, but that said, I do want to talk about ReAct Theater and the history of it. So when did it start? Were you involved in the creation of it?
So it started about 30 years ago in 1993, which seems like ages ago. I was, fresh out of college and kind of the pavement trying to get work here in town. Wasn't a lot of opportunities for artists of color. And so I thought I would try to create my own stuff. At the time, there was a theater just up the street, the Northwest Asian American Theater, which is now currently Theater Off Jackson.
Okay.
And they were sort of the place for any Asian artists to sort of congregate and move to or go to. And so I started volunteering there and trying to get shows and whatnot. And they had the regular season, but it usually ran from fall to like spring. So the summer was open.
Okay.
And so me and a lot of the other friends who wanted to just do something in the summer thought, well, let's put on a show. So I picked a play that I was very familiar with. I'd been in a production in high school, I'd been in a production in college. And so I thought, well, I'd just try my hand at directing this thing. So I pulled it together, a bunch of friends to put on the show. We did it. It went off pretty well. And so we just continued doing that since. That first production was an Asian cast production of a play called The Curious Savage by John Patrick. And then after that, we did a few more other projects where we sort of diversified into not just Asian actors, but the whole gamut of what's available. And that's kind of what ReAct became when we officially formed. And so our mission, of course, is to celebrate diversity and present pretty much traditional plays, just presented non-traditionally, to show the world on stage the way it really is in the world.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Now the name ReAct, it's a great name because you always say acting is reacting, right? Now, was it always called ReAct? Did you name it that from the beginning?
Pretty much. Our official name when we first started was the Repertory Actors Workshop, which then became Repertory Actors Theater, but pretty quickly people just started, because the way our logo was also designed, it clearly said ReAct. and I had that same sort of, our mission was sort of to redo shows in a new way. And so that sort of fit. And so we've just kind of been called ReAct since. And over the years, we lost the workshop, it became theater, and then we lost theater, although it's still printed at in terms of, we lost the Pertory and the tours of the actors. ReAct Theater is our official name now.
Very good. So let me talk to you a little bit about one of the points you made is when you started, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for Asian actors. Have you seen that improve, especially in Seattle? And how much, we still need to do some work in that way, but where are we now as compared to when you started?
Well, when we started, actually, there was NWAD, and there was the group, and there was several other ethnic-centric theaters. Most of those are all gone, but then newer theaters have sort of come in as well. Now we have Sound Theater and Reboot, who also have similar missions in terms of providing opportunities for underserved artists. And so, but I think the culture has improved. There's certainly more opportunities, I think, now. It could always be better, but theater's hard right now, post-pandemic.
Yeah.
We're all still trying to figure some new things out in the new world the way it is, and so it's always like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, you move
Baby
forward, and then
steps.
COVID hits, and then you're trying to get people back out to the theater, just in general.
Yeah.
Much less anything else. And we're going to talk to our artistic directors about that balance between filling seats and putting up shows that have name recognition, your little shops of horror, those sorts of things,
Right.
versus things that are important and good stories with something that's a little more complex or thought-provoking to tell.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's a delicate balance right now.
yeah, for sure, especially funding and things like that. But let's talk about, you have 2 shows coming up, and you've partnered with another one of those groups, Pratidhwani,
Yes.
who focuses on Southeast Asian actors and also art that people don't see kind of in the mainstream, which is nice. So I think my first show of theirs was, and it was another partnership with ReAct, was Refugees in the Garden City last year, which is a wonderful show. Tell me a little bit about, I guess first let's start with the partnership you've got with Pratidhwani, and then the 2 shows coming up.
Yeah, so our relationship with Pratidhwani actually goes back to the beginning of Pratidhwani. Basically, I think ReAct was doing a production of Into the Woods, multi-ethnic production that was performed at Langston Hughes, and I just reached out for volunteers. And a friend of a friend knew Agastya Kohli, who signed up to help out, and he came in and showed up when we were in tech, and I asked him, have you ever run a spotlight? And he hadn't, and so I said, do you want to? And he said yes. And so he basically ran one of the spots for the whole run of our production, and then quickly continued to volunteer with our company backstage and then on stage, and learning the ropes of producing theater and stuff like that. And about that same time, I think Pratidhwani may have already existed, but they were expanding, I believe, to have a theater wing. They'd done music and dance,
right?
And so he just kind of stepped into that, and then started producing and directing, Southeast Asian centric shows for Pratidhwani. And then the years of maybe 2011, 2010, ACT Theater had this program called ACT Lab, which went away at the pandemic, I think. But it was a place where they offered their extra spaces to other theater companies in town who had stuff to produce. And so we signed up to do a show together called Another to Another Language, which was presented in the Bullet Theater at ACT. And it was a huge success. I mean, we had sold out shows. It was a really fun production and a really fun show, which I directed with Agastya, actually. I think we co-directed that piece, if I remember correctly. And that went really well. And then since then, I've helped them with scenic stuff, and Agastya's continued. He was on our board for a long, long time. And then Refugees came up last year as a sort of a post-pandemic trying to come back sort of production. That was our first main stage show back, and then this year. So we had originally planned on producing Animals Out of Paper as our spring season opener for our 30th anniversary season.
Congratulations!
Thank you. And Pratidhwani, who's Agastya's group, was planning on doing Letters of Suresh in the fall, so we sort of planned on doing this sort of cross promotion. Animals Out of Paper was the original play written about 15 years ago, and Letters is the more recent sequel.
Kind of a sequel, right?
Yeah. It's a companion play to that. It picks up 10 years after Animals ends.
Okay.
With one of the main characters and what's happened to them in their world, basically. But then, because Letters really only has one Southeast Asian character, Agastya at Pratidhwani didn't feel like it was enough to do a full production of it with his group, and then so when we found out they weren't going to do the sequel, it suddenly dawned on us that, well, why don't we present it as our off-night show? Because when we perform at Coast Arts, we generally have always done 2 productions that have sort of rotated.
Okay.
Yeah, whether they were related or not.
Yeah.
But in this case, it seemed like a perfect fit.
Because you've got the space, right? So you're renting that space for a particular period of time.
Yeah, right. So if it's sitting empty, we're actually paying money to do nothing. So we might as well try at least to make some revenue pack.
So you had Animals Out of Paper planned first, and then when, because I remember I've been lined up to see that for a little while, and then I saw the advertisement for Letters of Suresh, and then I looked at the the date. So it was interesting how you did that. But you would recommend seeing Animals Out of Paper before Letters of Suresh because of the timing, I assume. And the way you've got it structured is that it's easy to do that.
You could, and certainly a lot of people probably will. If you saw them out of order, it probably wouldn't. I don't think it matters, honestly, because they're very stylistically very different.
Okay.
In presentation, and Letters, which is the sequel, I call it more of a companion play. It does have one character that carries over from Animals Out of Paper, but it's presented in a series of correspondence in different ways that humans communicate nowadays, including letter writing, of course. And it actually jumps back and forth between locations and time. There are scenes when Suresh, the main character, is back at 18, the same age he is, immediately after Animals Out of Paper ends.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so it does that. So you can see them out of order. I think what's interesting is each play makes you curious enough about the characters and about Joseph's amazing writing that I think hopefully people will just automatically want to see the other one, just to either get more history of the characters they've met or find out what happens to the characters they've met afterwards too.
I'm always intrigued by shows that have time jumps like that because it's requiring, regardless, and I don't know if there's set changes that need to be made to reflect that. Some people do some of those creatively through projections, things like that, but it's really the actors that are acting a certain age and then need to jump back or need to jump forward.
Yeah.
It's kind of a tricky thing.
It is a tricky thing. Yeah. Casting was challenging for Letters, I think, because we had to find the right actor. The character of Suresh, for one thing, he's Indian American, so he grew up in the United States. So, and the amazing thing is a lot of, at least the Indian actors in town, some of them might not be the right age to play 18-year-old, and the ones that are might have an Indian accent, which this character wouldn't have, and if they are not able to lose that, they wouldn't have been right for the part.
Right.
But there's always different challenges to that. Some scripts require this actor has blonde hair. You can take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you can play around with that. Yeah, a lot. So when do they open?
So Animals Out of Paper opens on the 19th.
Okay.
So we tech next week, and then it opens, and then once that play opens, Letters goes into tech immediately for the very short tech, and then opens on the 24th of next week, and then the two rotate from that point on.
Very good.
Yeah.
And you pay tickets and availability and the schedule. We have that on our website, soundonstage.org, on our community theater calendar. But you go to ReAct Theater. Is it .org?
.org.
Oh, and I imagine Pratidhwani's got it out.
They do as well.
Yep. Okay. Is that Pratidhwani.org as well?
That is correct.
Okay. Very good. So looking forward to that. But I know one of the things you've been looking forward to for a while is a new space. Which we are sitting in your I guess brandy newish space here. So before we get into this, which you were kind of giving me a tour beforehand. It's a nice big space with multiple studios, and talk about where you were before.
So in 2006, we were totally itinerant. We had one storage unit, a public storage unit down in South Seattle, where we stored everything. That wasn't in my living room or whatever, right? And our storage unit got broken into and ransacked.
Oh no!
And stuff was stolen. A lot of our really important props and stuff were stolen. And all of our files were sorted through and messed up. Anyway, it made the news, and when that happened, a lovely woman named Vera Ng, she was a community matriarch at that time, heard about it, and she's friends of friends, and she suggested, well, we have a place that we're not really using, you're welcome to use it, free of charge.
Oh, wow.
And this was in Lower Queen Anne near the South Center.
Okay.
And so we were there for, basically from 2006 till last year, when the building was sold, and then we had, they're tearing it down to build something else by developers. And Vera had passed away a few years back. And so we knew the end was coming. But at that point, we had been in Primavera, which it was called, for quite many years. But the amount of space that we were allowed to use in that building, depending on who was the current owners or whatever, kept fluctuating. And so we at some point we had our prop storage there. At some point we had costumes there. At some point we had scenic stuff there. But then at a certain point, all we had was one small room left to use for rehearsals and meetings. So I had over the course of many years, I got additional storage spaces to house our props and costumes and scenery. And then, of course, when the building was closed, we had to move out completely. So I went back into my living room and garage and whatnot. And then so we started actively looking to find a new home, a new base of operations, basically. And we get searching, and real estate's not cheap for rental stuff. But a good friend and supporter of ours, Kyoko Matsumoto, is a realtor, and she works for a particular real estate company that does some commercial work. And she basically let us know about this space. It's also not cheap, but considering what we were paying in rent before and knowing that we're trying to grow the theater and keep it going, we took that leap of faith and got some funding to help us in this transition period.
Sure.
and hopefully make it something sustainable. So we were able to pull all of our stuff back into under one roof, which has just been great. The public storage facilities were always overrun with rodents.
Oh yeah,
which was not good for our scenic stuff,
not at all,
or our costumes or anything.
anything, textile things, wood, anything.
Anything. Oh my gosh,
it's very indiscriminate.
So happy to get out of there. And once we moved in here, I'm there scrubbing and cleaning everything, washing everything, just to be done with that. So, and it's so nice to be able to be in rehearsal and say, oh, I need this prop, and just to run down to the next hallway and grab something is something I haven't had the luxury of having for quite some time.
Yeah, so you have this large studio that we're in now. You've got prop storage in the back. You've got costume storage. And I know you're still moving in, so you're still organizing things. But it seems like not only do you have space, now you've got some space to grow as well. And you're also, from a usability perspective, it's not just you open this to the community, right?
Yeah. We did get a lovely grant to help us defray the cost of the rent for the first year that we're here, which the anniversary is coming up soon, so I'm getting a little nervous. But hopefully our productions, now that we're back in swing of productions, will raise enough money to keep it going. And we have lots of different fundraisers for it as well. But in addition to that, we're hoping to have a little bit of rental income. So we offer this space basically on a pay what you will sort of rental structure. We have a suggested amount to cover our base costs and turning the lights on.
Utilities and things like that.
Exactly. And hopefully if we're able to book enough of those, it will help defray a little bit of the cost of the rent to rent the space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, you said it's not a cheap area, but it's a nice area art-wise. You're right across the street from Lumenfield, and as you walk, I was walking from downtown, you were passing art galleries and all these, little bookshops and things that really are uniquely Seattle on the way. So it's a nice little area.
Yeah, it's great. Parking can be a little bit of a challenge when there's a game or something, but we've had many rehearsals here now when there have been games, and everyone makes do or adjusts, right? I mean, if 20,000 fans can get here on the transit and find parking, 6 or 7 or 12 people can do the same.
Yeah, and for me coming over from the ferry, it's a quick walk from Coleman.
They're opening a park across the street actually in a year or so, and there's a lovely walk right to the ferry terminal that way. And then the International District Station at the light rail is just on the other side of the Lumenfield Park.
Yeah. So it's pretty conventionally located, and it's not hard to get to at all. And we take advantage of that we're turning into spring and summer and get out of the rainy season. Walking is not such a bad thing.
Yeah. And our hope is to maybe pepper some programming in that might be of interest to people coming early for a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the intention is not just because you're doing the shows you're doing with Pratidhwani or 12th Avenue Arts, but the intention is to put up shows here, right?
At some point, some smaller shows, solo shows or 2 3-handers. you know, I mean, we can do large shows too, but it's just easier.
Yeah.
Because
well, there's no wings or anything, so
right.
you know, you're limited. You're limited
making
by
black
that.
boxes.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do, I mean, stage readings, like you were saying, 1 or 2 person shows, things like that. And it seems like it's a great spot, especially being available to the public to come, and if somebody's got a playwright, a local playwright that wants to try something out, it seems like the perfect place to come and do that.
Sure. And artists, you know, we're just at the south end of the art walk.
Yeah, you mentioned that before off camera.
And we have a little gallery area too in
Yeah.
our lobby that we'd love to, you know, if there's a theater artist that also does some other types of visual arts, we'd love to, you know, display your stuff.
Great.
Yeah.
And speaking of the lobby area, there's a display of newspaper clippings and things like that. Are those all stories of related to the shows you guys have done over the years?
Yeah, that's our history. Put up on the wall. Basically, it only goes to. I ran out of space on the boards that are there at like 2019.
Okay.
2018, but I'm prepared to make 2 more. Yeah.
Well, hopefully someday all the walls out there will be filled with stuff. So before we get into, I want to talk about how people can support the theater and your organization. Do you have anything planned for the fall? I mean, you don't necessarily. Do you schedule things on a regular basis like a lot of theater companies will schedule? We've got a spring show or fall show or winter show. How do you? And I guess let's even start a little bit further than that. When you're looking to do a show, what is kind of the philosophy? What are you looking for in a show that you're? And then we'll talk about scheduling.
Well, if it's a ReAct production, and because I usually pick the programming, it has to be a play that I am enthused about. Yeah. So I see a lot of theater, and I love theater almost more than life. But there's obviously plays that move me, that make me laugh or make me cry or make me think, and those are the ones that I tend to migrate to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, since we have the mission of celebrating diversity, I also like to then see how we can make the play different, better, more interesting, whatever you want to call it, by diversifying it in whatever way it needs to be diversified, whether that's increasing the number of females in the cast or increasing the ethnic diversity of the cast. But it's not colorblind necessarily to give opportunities. It's also what I call color-sensitive casting. Mm-hmm. So if we change a family from Caucasian to African-American, for instance, we're not having the African-American actors play Caucasian family. They're bringing their own backgrounds into the production, so that which could affect the set, it could affect costumes, it could affect the way they say the lines, it could affect all sorts of things. Right?
Yeah, and honestly, that affects, and my wife and I always talk about the best shows you see are the ones we talk about for the entire drive home. Yeah. And when you change casting like that, I imagine it could even change how you interpret a show, because of, especially if the language is a little bit different or the mannerisms are a little bit different. It's not the same show as you would if it was a white family in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of our mission, to sort of show the universality of the human existence, but also to highlight the differences and how wonderful that is too.
Absolutely. So so scheduling wise, going back to that question, you've got these 2 shows now, and you talk about your time at 12th Avenue. You usually run 2 kind of in tandem with each other. Do you have regularly set parts of the calendar where you put up shows, or is it more of an ad hoc kind of organic thing?
Currently, it's a little ad hoc. In our heyday, which honestly I would say was probably the 2005 to 2015, it was more of like, here's our season, come check it out. Now we go more project to project, but that might change. It might stay the same. We're still trying to figure it out. Yeah. Honestly, I'm trying to build the theater up in a way now that at some point I can pass the reins on to someone else. And I'm also, my life has changed. So, my the important things that I find myself having to contend with caring for elderly parents, so family, relationship stuff, which I've not focused on. I've been more focused on my career, but some of those other strings are pulling at me now. And so, not that I'm losing steam, because I love theater too much to lose steam.
Yeah, if there's anybody energetic about the Seattle theater scene, it's you. I mean, you go to a show, and I remember, I forget which one, I think was it the Rep, I think, where I ran into you and taking selfies with people. The energy you bring, even when you just attend a show, is amazing. So yeah, there's no doubt that you love theater.
Yeah. So I'm trying to balance, basically balance.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone needs balance in their life.
Yeah.
And especially post-pandemic, where people got really out of balance.
Oh yeah.
I think now we're sort of figuring it out.
Yeah, trying to find the new normal, I guess you could call it, whichever it is.
The new abnormal.
Yeah. So as you're transitioning back, you've got the new space, and we talked about rent and grants and things like that. How can people out there watching support ReAct Theater?
Well, gosh, buy a ticket to a show when we have a show up is one thing. Telling friends about us, because I mean, we've been around for 3 decades, but there are a lot of people who've never heard of us or never come see a show. I mean, dear friends of mine have never come see a show, albeit a lot of them are theater artists, also busy doing theater.
That's true. Yeah.
So I understand, but donations are always welcome, and not just donation of money, donation of time, donation of stuff that you might not need, but a theater might. I mean, just having to stock the space with toilet paper and paper towels has been like a budget item, line item that we didn't have to contend with before.
Yeah. It's not something a lot of people think about, those kind of incidentals, I guess you might call them, but they add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, or if people have, there could be anything. It could be, I work for an insurance company and I can get, theater insurance for you guys at a fair price. Or, I work for an airline, and if you need guest artists flown into Seattle, we could help you with that, or it could be anything.
Okay. Well, you mentioned a board of directors. How many people are on your board?
Currently, we have 6.
Okay.
6. We lost a couple of really long-term dear friends who just, the pandemic and whatnot, life changes, which I totally understand, have to step down. And we've been working to try to replace them with other people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking to grow? Are you looking to grow the board, or or consider anybody who's enthusiastic about the theater?
Obviously, this is such a collaborative art, and in my book, it's always the more the merrier. So I don't think we have a limit on how large our board could be. Obviously, some people have more time to donate or to help out than others, and we totally understand that. And right now, a lot of our board is also other theater practitioners in some way or another. So, there are times when they're doing their own shows or not available.
That's true.
And,
yeah.
That's just part of the culture, the community.
Yeah, for sure. Well, David, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
I appreciate the conversation. My guest on Get to Know a Theater has been David Hsieh, founder and artistic director here at ReAct Theater. We're at their new space in downtown Seattle. The 2 shows, Animals Out of Paper and Letters of Suresh, are opening in the next couple of weeks at 12th Avenue Arts. Be sure to get out and see those. Check out ReAct's website or Pratidhwani's website or our website to get information, and I'll have everything linked in the notes for the show. And thank you for watching another episode of Get to Know a Theater. I'm Greg Heilman with The Sound on Stage. Until next time, I'll see you at the stage door.